The mere prospect of our military holding honest and brave conversations about the history of race and racism in this country is seemingly too much to countenance for some conservative lawmakers and their allies in right-wing media. And it's all they're talking about. How that dialogue, a conversation about race in America, would somehow undermine unit cohesion and, by extension, our national security. But there's an argument, a pretty good one, that the opposite is true, that learning about racial discrimination in our shared past would, in fact, perhaps be beneficial for military officers. Joining our conversation, chair of the Department of African American Studies at Princeton University and an MSNBC contributor, Eddie Glaude. Paul Rykoff is still here. Paul, I know you've had a lot to say about this. I follow you and everything you share on social media. Tell me your take.
This is the most obvious thing in the world. Like, getting to know people you serve with in the military and in your country would be a good thing. It would be a good thing for national security, for our military, for America. And maybe just to underscore that point for people who may not be familiar, the enlisted ranks of the military is actually more diverse than America. So for the folks in right-wing media and other places who want to criticize our military and question its diversity, apparently they haven't been to a recruiting station recently in a place like New York or Detroit or Los Angeles, because it is the ultimate display of great American diversity. People from all backgrounds signing up to enlist and work together on behalf of America. So people who are criticizing this really don't understand the modern military. This is not 1860. I mean, this is a very modern, progressive, integrated, diverse military that's now finally correcting some of the wrongs that the Trump administration put in place, like banning trans people and other things that hurt our national security. So, I think General McCaffrey called it twaddle the other day with Brian Williams. I don't know what to call it, but it's nonsense. And I don't even want to even respond to it. It's so ridiculous. But we can have the conversation, hopefully add light to the heat.
Well, Eddie, I mean, speaking of light, the red herring that the right puts out there is unit cohesion. It seems that they're jeopardizing that with the way they're talking about these things.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, remember the Senate Intelligence Committee.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Eddie, and then you, Paul. Sorry. Go ahead, Eddie.
Remember the Senate Intelligence Committee report about Russian interference in the 2016 election said that the Russian government sought to sow discord and to exploit our racial divisions. And so we see them playing in that playbook for interesting sorts of reasons. That's on the one hand. So we know this is a national security issue. We know that the idea that it threatens unit cohesion makes no sense. And then the last point that I've really been trying to figure out is, what is the substance of these folks' patriotism? That, in fact, the way in which they attack our military, the way in which they're defending those who sacked the Capitol, I don't know what the substance of their loyalty to the country is. That in some ways, what we're seeing over and over again, Nicole, is a kind of defense of a view of America that presumes that only people who look like them and think like them matter. So much so that they're willing to attack the very people, the very institution that defends the country. It makes little sense to me, but in some ways it makes a lot of sense.
Paul, I want your thoughts on the first question, that their argument seems to be something that they're moving us farther away from. But to Eddie's point as well, I mean, what are they for? You go back to, you and I were on the air together after their treatment of Secretary Austin and their treatment of General Milley. I mean, if you're against those two men, who are you for?
They're for themselves. I mean, what they're displaying is the ultimate contrast to the principles of our American military, our great American military: honor, integrity, personal courage. This is a demonstration in the opposite of that. So maybe it's a great teachable moment. OK, don't be like people on Fox News. Be like Secretary Austin. Be like General Milley. Have honor. Have integrity. Put the greater good ahead of yourself. Seek to understand other people. Be an intellectual. Be a warrior scholar. Don't be a knuckle-dragging moron who hates people who aren't like you. I mean, that's the kind of stuff you hear out of Russia. It's not what you hear from America. So I think we really have to underscore that this is talk and criticism that hurts our national security. It's also going to hurt their politics. If the Republicans think this is going to get them more independence and help them grow the party, they're sadly mistaken, because this is cutting to a very important core. Veterans, military folks, prior service, people who care about national security have always made up a very important core of the Republican Party. And those people are fleeing by the platoon, brigade, and division by the minute.
Eddie, what did you think? It's the first time I've had a chance to talk to you. When you heard General Milley saying he's offended that generals are being accused of being woke because they're teaching America's racial history.
Well, I heard very clearly a defense of liberal education, that we don't want our soldiers, we don't want our officers to be narrow-minded, to be kind of locked into the kind of provincialism that prevents them from seeing the vast diversity of the world, to understanding the complexity of our country's history and our present, so that they can actually make serious and substantive and significant interventions in our moment. So I heard a robust defense of what it means to be a liberally educated person, a cosmopolitan human being, and how that makes a better soldier. But the last point I would make is this. There's always been this incredibly conflicted, vexed relationship between race and our military. We've served, black folk have served in the Civil War. We've served in World War I, World War II, the Vietnam War, Nicole, and we've come back home and we've faced this over and over again. So this is just an extension of our history, it seems to me.